Hello, the webinar is just about to start. Thank you very much for showing up. I know everyone is very busy, so we do appreciate you showing up for a 5 o'clock webinar. I hope this time was able to accommodate your schedule. My name is Mary Morgan. I am the Senior Associate here at the Elks National Foundation, and I'll be giving the webinar today. The main reason I'll be the one giving the webinar today is that in the Community Investments Program, I'm the main person who works with the impact grants. So I work with all the grantees all year long. I learn about all their struggles and their successes. So I hope to be a good resource for all of you as you start your projects this year. So let's kick this off. Welcome to the 2015 Impact Grant Kickoff webinar. As I said, my name is Mary Morgan. I work with the Community Investments Program here. The other person in the department is named Sarah Louderman. She is our programs assistant. She's most likely the voice you hear when you call on the phone. But if you have any impact grant specific questions, please do ask for me. So today we'll be talking about how impact grants work, how your lodge can make the most of its impact grant, and what our expectations are for lodges that receive impact grants. First, a little bit of information about this webinar. If you can't hear me, please let me know. Answer a question in that, or ask a question in that question box on the right-hand side, or raise your hand, or send us an email and let us know. And we'll do our best to make sure you can hear and get everything out of this. And all we'll be doing today is I'll have a slideshow that I'm sharing with you, and I'll be explaining all the slides. If you have questions at any time, please do type them into that question box. I'm the only one that can see that question box, so if you have to leave early or anything like that, if you want to talk about it further, you can leave your email or your phone number, anything like that. I will be recording this webinar, so if you want to go back and reference it or share it with other people at your lodge, this is being recorded and it is being saved on the SIP Central webpage, which you can find if you go to elks.org/ENF. Then you click on Community. That's the main grants webpage, and one of the big options there is SIP Central. So we have all sorts of resources there, our news release generator, photo guidelines, announcements, our photo contest, our SIP Volunteer of the Year application. So it's a great page to check in on if your lodge is active in using its grants, and it is if you have received an impact grant. So let's get started on the impact grant specific information. First, congratulations. Your lodge is one of 53 lodges to receive an impact grant this year, and we received 169 applications, so it was pretty competitive. This year we awarded $478,400 in impact grant funding, which is the most that we've ever awarded. And you will notice there that the number doesn't exactly match up with the number of grants. And the reason for that is not every lodge asks for $10,000, and not every lodge receives $10,000. It's all about the budget. So 213 other lodges began their impact grant applications, but they ultimately didn't submit an application. So just a little overview about how we go about evaluating the impact grant applications. So when we get all those applications after the deadline, then we review them, we break them into categories, and there's 3 main categories for when we review the applications. First, we review the applications that are applying for their 2nd and 3rd year of funding. The reason we do that is we want to make sure these projects that we've helped to get off the ground with impact grant funding have continued support as they improve and expand and build community support for those projects. So out of the $500,000 grant pool, first we evaluate the 2nd and 3rd year applications. After that, we evaluate the lodges that are applying for their first impact grant, and that's where your lodge comes in. So we evaluate all of those and award all of those grants. And then if there's any funding left in the grant pool after that, and there always has been in the past, lodges can apply for their 4th year of funding, their 5th year of funding, and beyond. As impact grants get more and more popular each year, we do expect that it will be harder and harder to get an impact grant. So we're hoping to get your lodge off to a good start so that you can learn your way around and keep this community project going. So recently, every lodge that received an impact grant received their official approval letter, and along with that was a list of assurances. And what that is it's just a list of 16 agreements that we want your lodge to carefully consider and sign and agree to. So most of them are pretty straightforward. The basic thing is that we want your lodge to run the project as it's laid out in the approved application. We don't want any surprises or changes or anything like that. That doesn't mean that we won't allow your lodge to change. We understand that things happen and we want you to adapt your project and make the most of it. But if anything changes along the year, please call us, whether that's a project manager or a budget item or a location for the project. Things like that. When in doubt, always contact us. So these assurances are due to be signed and returned to the ENF by December 10th. Now, if you look at the assurances, right, on number 2, the second assurance requires that every lodge receiving an impact grant for the first time must establish a separate bank account specifically for those impact grant funds. And then this is required in order for us to send the impact grant funds to your lodge. So go to your bank after you set up the account, make sure you get documentation of that and send that along to us with those signed assurances. And those are the 2 things that we need to send your lodge its impact grant check. Just a quick mention that in order to receive ENF grant funds at any time, your lodge does have to be in compliance with all other ENF grants. And what that means is that if you have any outstanding grants, like a 2013-14 Promise Grant, you have to make sure you get your final report and all the receipts in to us and complete that before we'll send you the grant funds for another grant. Now, most of these lodges are in compliance, but if your lodge is out of compliance, please contact me as soon as possible and I can tell you exactly how we can clear that up. So, a note about involvement. All of the impact grant recipients had a significant amount of elk involvement in their project, and that was required for approval. So keep that in mind as the project goes along, is that involvement is absolutely required and it should be the foundation of your project. So the reason we talk about involvement so much is that we want the community to see your lodge members out there volunteering and active. So if the community sees your lodge doing great charitable things, it's very possible that that'll attract members, charitable members who are active and want to get involved. And those are just the kind of people that you want involved with your impact grant project and your lodge. So we recommend that you recruit volunteers all year long. Ask lodge members, reach out to lodge members that never show up for anything. Ask your family and friends, your neighbors. A lot of lodges have had success asking youth groups, whether that be from the church or a service club at the high school, or if you have a sports project, you might want to ask the girls basketball team or the boys football team to come out and help out. A lot of lodges have had success with other fraternal groups or women's groups or gardening clubs, things like that. So cast a wide net and look for support everywhere you can. A lot of projects do have partners, and that is great. It's definitely encouraged if it makes sense for your lodge. Partnerships can really elevate the project in terms of experience, volunteer recruitment, contacts, resources, publicity, all of that. We just want to give your lodge a heads up that if you do have a partner, it's best to be very clear with them about the requirements for the impact grant right away. And the 2 main ones that you should communicate to any project partners is that, 1, impact grant funds cannot be donated. So your lodge does need to be in charge of the funds all year long and needs to be actively running the project. You can't write a check over to an organization for anything. And 2, Elks do have to be involved in the impact grant project. And the reason we express this is not to cast any doubt on your partners. It's just the simple fact that when you approach most nonprofit organizations and you say, I want to help, the natural first answer that they'll come back with is, great, you should give us money. So we just want your lodge to be aware that you be upfront from the beginning about the requirements, and everybody will be on the same page and be able to work together. So project managers, we'll go over the project managers, and two people that we call project managers are the two people that you're listed on the application. I believe their technical titles on the application were primary contact and project managers. But we generally refer to anybody who's running the project at the lodge level as a project manager. We ask that there are at least two people listed for each lodge. And that's very important because in the past we've had situations where somebody moved away, somebody transferred to another lodge, somebody was in the hospital for a few months. And when you place all the burden on that one person, if we can't get in contact with that person, that becomes a problem for your lodge because you could miss emails, you could send in late reports, and those result in penalties for your lodge. So always at least two people. If your lodge has 3 or 4 people who are running all the day-to-day aspects of the project, please let us know, pass along their email addresses. We'll make sure they're on the list and they can get all of our monthly emails, our webinar invitations, all of our guidelines and articles and resources that we send out as well. So just let us know and we'll make sure to include anybody that you request from your lodge to be included. If these individuals do change at any point through the project year, we ask that you notify us as soon as possible. Because of this, we recommend that the people listed as the project managers for your lodge not be tied to lodge positions that change during the calendar year. And the reason this is because, the impact grants are on a calendar year, which is different than the lodge year. So a lot of times we'll start the year in contact with the lodge secretary and they'll be on top of things and communicating with us. And then come mid-April, which is right when the first quarter report is due for this grant, we get radio silence because that person has completed their secretary duties and, they rightly think that they don't have any more responsibilities tied to that. And what happens is your lodge doesn't get the information it needs and we don't get the report that we require. So we recommend that to make the project strongest, the people involved with the project and listed as the project managers stay committed to the project all year round and you don't tie that to another position at the lodge that would change, in April. So that's why we recommend that. And just a note that all of our communication will be done through these individuals listed as project managers. So our reports are digital, so everything will be emailed. We always ask for valid phone numbers because we love to call and check up and see how the project is going, but email addresses are our main form of communication. Speaking of quarterly reports, I mentioned these a little earlier. So the assurances mention that there are 4 reports that your lodge will be required to send in through the year. They are due April 15th, July 15th, October 15th, and then the following January 31st. So every 3 months we ask for a report on the project. These reports are read carefully by ENF staff, and they are the only way that we know how the project is going. So if your project is going great, it's very successful, you want to tell us about it, this quarterly report is the place to do so. So, and especially if you intend to apply for funding again next year, these reports are considered alongside the application. So make sure that you really put your time into assessing the project, and it's very helpful for lodges as well to step back and take stock every couple months. So just a heads up on what we ask for in these quarterly reports. We'll ask for a lot of basic data. So how many volunteer hours were given to the project, how many of those were Elks volunteers, how many other volunteers you have, how many people were served by the project, all sorts of information like that. Now when we do ask how many people were served by the project, what we mean is an unduplicated number. So if your lodge, for example, has a meal project and you serve 20 people each Wednesday night for this meal, when the end of the year comes, we're looking for an unduplicated number. So if it's roughly the same number, the same 20 people every week, then the number of people served will be around 20. So, we're looking for quality. We don't need you to buff up your numbers and say it's in the thousands. We just want an accurate reporting of what's going on because obviously we're very far away. We also ask for financial information in these reports, so it's very important to keep all of the receipts for all of the impact grant funds. So we will ask you to list and explain all of the funds that you've spent for the 3 months preceding the report. So for example, the April 15th report will cover January, February, and March. So you'll need all the receipts for those months. You'll need an accounting of what all those funds were spent on, and that should align with the budget that your lodge submitted in the approved impact grant application. And when we say receipts, we need the actual receipts from the stores. So, you know, it's common for lodges to pull in different volunteers and ask them to help things. So, you know, say Virginia goes to the store and she buys $100 in grocery supplies. We would need a $100 receipt from the grocery store. A $100 reimbursement check made out to Virginia wouldn't be appropriate. We need the actual receipts. So keep that in mind and make copies. And then we also request bank statements for the 3 months preceding the report. So the first report will require the January, February, and March bank statement for that impact grant account that you open. So we have a call out. We want to emphasize assurance number 10 at the bottom here. These reports must be submitted to us in a timely manner. If an impact grant report is not submitted to us with all the receipts and bank statements required by 1 month after the stated deadline, we will contact your lodge's state sponsor, and your lodge will be considered out of compliance until all of those reports are sent. So what out of compliance means is that you won't be able to apply for or use any other grants until everything that we have is needed. And then if more than 2 reports during the year are over a month late, your lodge won't be able to apply again. So this seems harsh, but $10,000 is a lot of money, so we do need your lodge to very much stay on top of these reports and get them to us on time. And as I said before, we understand that things happen, so if you need an extension or there's going to be a delay, just call us and let us know. Always keep us in the loop. We do recommend that your lodge keep a copy of all these quarterly reports for your own records as well, just as a best practice. Another thing you might want to do is keep good stats to make these a little easier after each session. So if you have a weekly project or a monthly project, make sure that you have volunteer logs and you gather all that information right when it happens. And then when these reports come along, it'll be a little bit easier to gather everything. In addition to general data and financial information, we also ask for your lodge to do a little bit of a deeper analysis when these reports come. So in your lodge's application that was approved, we asked you to lay out goals and objectives for the project. So when you're filling out these reports, we will ask you to reflect back on those goals and tell us how you're doing. Now, there's no need to buff up and say, we've met all our goals. We understand that it can be difficult, especially with a first-year project, to get things off the ground. So just be honest and tell us about your successes and your struggles and everything you're experiencing. So when we ask about that progress, we'll also be asking how your lodge is measuring that progress. And there's a lot of different ways this can be done, again, depending on the project that your lodge is running. So a lot of lodges use survey responses. They hand out surveys to the program participants, or they'll do interviews, or they'll ask for feedback from certain participants. A lot of school-based projects maybe ask for attendance records or reading test results. So make sure that you're always thinking about making the project successful, but also how you can show that success. Especially if you're applying for funding from somewhere else, or even if you're just talking to somebody about the difference you're making. You're recruiting volunteers. You say, this project is really working. And they'll say, oh yeah, tell me more. And you'll be able to tell them how it's working and what your positive results are. So we also appreciate any stories, anecdotes, quotes from lodge members or volunteers or the people that you're serving. Photos are always great. We understand that photos can be difficult because of privacy laws if you're working with children or other populations. So just do your best. What a lot of lodges do in those situations is they'll simply take photos of the Elks who are volunteering for the projects. And those are fantastic. Those will work just great for all of our needs. The reason we ask for photos is we want to publicize your project to Elks, on our website, on our Facebook account, on Instagram, sometimes in the magazine. And photos really help us to do that, to catch people's attention. So just one more note about these quarterly reports. These are really the way that your lodge can tell us the story of your project. So, as I said, we're very far away. So we're entirely dependent on this and on you to make sure that we're updated on everything that's going on. And, be honest and tell us what's not working, because we stay in close contact with all of our impact grant recipients. So if your lodge is struggling with something like volunteer recruitment, oftentimes we can put you in touch with somebody who's been running an impact grant project for 3 or 4 years, who has a lot of advice and strategies, and we can connect you right with them and you guys can share ideas. So don't be afraid to tell us what's going on so that we can try and help and make sure that we're being the best support that we can be for you guys as you take on these big projects. We'll talk a little bit about volunteers again. The reason we'll do this is that in our experience here at the ENF, the impact grant projects that are the most successful and the most ongoing have a strong and varied group of volunteers to depend on. So counting on just 3 or 4 people to do all the work for the whole project often leads to volunteer burnout. It's a lot to expect of certain people. So we want to make sure that your lodge is doing its best to energize your lodge and engage the members and make sure that you spread the work around for the project as well and get a lot of different people excited about it. So spread the word. We asked some of our impact grant project managers from previous years if they had any advice, and more than one of them said, "Oh, ask everybody all the time for help. Even if you're sure it's going to be a no, make sure you ask." And sometimes that can open the door to somebody, giving an unexpected yes. Another thing that we heard was give people specific tasks. Maybe they don't want to stay for the whole event, but maybe you could ask them to stop at the grocery store beforehand and pick up some snacks for the participants and then drop them off at the lodge. So if you need to tailor your request and give people different ways to help, that can be a great way to involve a lot of people as well. So be welcoming and appreciative is another tip that we got. Make sure that you let volunteers know that they're making a difference and you value their time. Another tip we got was to make it easy. If you can build volunteering into people's schedules, do so. For example, one lodge has a backpack program for kids. So every Wednesday they stuff these backpacks full of snacks and they drop them off at the school for the kids to take home over the weekend. And they found that the best time to do this is on Wednesdays, after work and right before a very popular Wednesday night dinner at the lodge. So because people are usually already headed to the lodge at 7:30 on Wednesday nights, they set their volunteer time at 6:30. So all people have to do is take their regular schedule and show up a little bit early and lend a hand. And they found that that's a great way to get more people involved with the project by making it easy for them. Make sure you prepare your volunteers. Let them know what they can expect and what they'll be doing so there's no surprises. Trust your volunteers, use their skills, ask them what they're interested in and try to tailor that to them. And finally, share the success with the volunteers. Let them know what all of you together are doing. So if you have positive results or a great quote or a thank you note from a child or a parent or somebody in the program, do your best to share that any way that you can, whether that's on the bulletin board or a Facebook account or an email newsletter or something like that. When you let people know that they're making a difference, they'll be much more likely to come back and help. And that's another piece of advice we got from some of our project managers. So I hope that was helpful. And again, the reason we stress this is really the foundation of a good project. So a couple other examples that we have is Wheeling, West Virginia has a project that's been going on for quite a few years, every Wednesday night they go to the local soup kitchen and they make it a children's night. They bring games and they help the kids with their homework, and all the Elks come out and they serve a kid-friendly meal, and they always arrange an educational presentation. And the way that they've been able to keep this going so long is, they said, they have a strong group of volunteers, and every week during the month is taken care of by a different group. So each person only has to, prepare and get everything ready for 1 week every month, and that makes it a lot easier for them to not get overwhelmed and do their best and stay engaged with the project without leaning too much on people who are willing to come out and help. So that was another good example we got of how to keep volunteers engaged. Now we also talk a lot at the ENF about involving youth. So I don't know, this is a pretty new example, but starting this year, all of our Legacy Award recipients that are freshmen are required to volunteer with an Elks Lodge every year in order to receive their scholarship. So we really want to get our Elks scholars, our Legacy scholars, as well as our MVS scholars and our EEG scholars involved with Elks and seeing what the great things that Elks are doing. So don't overlook college students and Elks scholars in your community. And if you're not sure if there's any Elks scholars in your community, call our office and we can set you up. We can tell you, if there's a university near your lodge, how many Elks scholars are there, or we can tell you if it's around a holiday, if you have a summer project or a Christmas program, how many Elks scholars there are in your area. So that's a great way to reach out and get young people involved in the project and possibly turn them into future Elks members. So definitely call us if you're interested in having scholars engage with your lodge and help out with the projects too. Finally, we'll talk about publicity. Promote your project every way you can. Right now, that might be a little more difficult, but once you get the project going, after a couple months, that's a great time to start talking about what your lodge is accomplishing. So contact local newspapers, radio stations, newsletters, city websites, Facebook pages, everything like this. And it's important to tailor this too. So a couple lodges have mentioned that they have school-based projects and they advertise in the PTA newsletter, or they'll put an ad in the high school newspaper. And so make sure, be creative and think about how you can tailor your project to the participants and the people you want to attract. So publicity is always important. And when you're talking about the project, we really encourage your lodge to talk about it in a very active way. So your lodge members and their volunteer time should be a big part of the story. So focus on your lodge, how your lodge is taking action. And we want you to avoid words that downplay that involvement. So, if you talk about it as a donation or a sponsorship, a lot of people will see that, that one-time engagement, it's just money and that's it. So don't undersell your lodge. Really talk about what everybody is accomplishing and how your lodge is making a difference and actively engaging with the community. And one tip that we got from one of our lodges that have had great success with local publicity is to always include quotes, if you can, from participants, thank you notes, or from volunteers. And photos are always helpful. And to talk about, the positive change that your lodge hopes will come from the project. So why did you start the project? Why are you guys going through all this trouble to submit the application and attend these webinars and put in all the time? Talk about your passion, why you guys think this is important, and pull people in through there. And we have a little bit of help to help your lodge with this. We have something on our website called the News Release Generator. And what this is it's a program that will plug in your lodge's information into a already standardized news release. So that way you can get a good professional sounding news release to send to local organizations. Now you can enter your information in there and take that exact output and send it somewhere, or you can enter all your information, get our draft, and make it your own. But we do have some great tips on how to write news releases, how to get people to read them, what information to put at the top, how to make it very easy for people to feature your lodge on the news or in the paper or on the radio or wherever it may be. So please do visit that website. It's very helpful, and we always love seeing Elks in the news. And finally, my final parting words are, if anything changes, call us. It's a good rule of thumb that if anything's strange or you don't know what's going on, or you thought the project was going to start the first week of January but you need a couple extra weeks to start, just give us a call and let us know. And it doesn't always have to be a problem or a question. We love hearing from volunteers and project managers telling us about their successes. As I said, we're very far away, but we love reading about these projects, and we put a fair amount of time into reading the applications and working with people, so we love to share in your successes as well. And as I said, we're here every step of the way to help your lodge make the most of its impact grant. So it's nothing too big or too small. Always contact us. We talk to great project managers all across the country every day, so we have lots of suggestions and ideas from them that we can share with you as well. So here is the contact information. So that 773-755-4852 number will lead you directly to me. And again, my name is Mary Morgan. You can also reach me directly at marym@elks.org. Or you can also call the main programs line or the ENF programs at elks.org email. Both of those come to the Community Investments Program, which is just me and Sarah. So call us anytime and we'll do our best to help you. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to type them into this question panel on the right-hand side, or you can email me or call me anytime. I hope this has been helpful. And thank you all for joining me. I know everybody's very busy, so I do appreciate you taking the time to come along and get this strong start on your lodge's project. So thank you all very much, and good night, and I hope to hear from you soon.